Alex, I spent 3 hours yesterday just staring at the grain on a piece of white oak. I didn't cut a single thing. I just sat there with a cup of coffee that went cold 2 hours in, wondering if the wood was looking back at me with the same level of confusion.
Well, considering you usually treat lumber like a puzzle that's personally offended you, I'd say a 3 hour standoff is progress. At least you didn't end up in the urgent care unit this time.
Barely. Every time I pick up a chisel lately, I feel like I'm negotiating a peace treaty with a very stubborn tree. But hey, it's Monday, March 9th, and we aren't here to talk about my existential crises in the woodpile. We've got actual, tangible breakthroughs to cover today. Welcome to the TigerDen Daily, folks.
We're hitting the high notes today. We've got some heavy-duty industrial welding tech that sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi flick. The secret sauce for making your small batch products look like they cost 3 times as much. And your regular reminder that specialized trade skills are basically a superpower in 2026.
It's a good spread. And look, I want to start with the big iron. I saw some news out of the industrial sector that made my inner metal worker do a little hop. There's a new submerged arc welding, or SAW, system hitting the floor that's pushing deposition rates up by about 30%.
Okay, for those of us who haven't spent our lives behind a darkened visor, deposition rate is just a fancy way of saying how much metal you're actually melting into the gap, right?
Exactly. Think of it like a hot glue gun. If you're trying to glue a giant cardboard castle together, you don't want a tiny little craft gun that drips a bead the size of a ladybug. You want a literal bucket of hot glue you can pour into the seam. This SAW system is that bucket. It buries the arc under a layer of granular flux, so you don't get the sparks and the UV madness. But more importantly, it just piles the weld metal in there at a pace that's frankly a little intimidating.
30% faster is no joke. That's the difference between a shop foreman going home at 5 o'clock p.m. or having to order cold pizza for the crew at midnight because a bridge girder isn't finished.
And it's not just about speed. It's about not having to fix your mistakes. When you move that fast and keep the heat that consistent, the structural integrity is through the roof. It's like the difference between me trying to stitch a button on a shirt, which looks like a bird nested on my chest, and a professional tailor.
I've seen your sewing, Tiger. It's more stitches first day with a needle than professional. But speaking of professionals, Mazak Optonics is making some moves too. They've officially brought their Optonics brand to the States.
Mazak is the gold standard for a reason. Having their specialized laser support more localized in the US is huge. I remember back in the day, if a high-end laser went down, you were basically waiting for a specialist to fly in from across the globe while your shop sat silent and expensive. Now that edge is becoming more accessible. It's a great time to be in precision fabrication.
You always get that look in your eye when we talk about lasers. It's a mix of awe and I wish I could have one in my garage to cut my toast.
Don't think for a second I haven't calculated the wattage needed for the perfect sourdough crust. But let's shift gears. I want to talk about the kids coming up in the trades. We just had the PHCC National HVAC Apprentice Contest, and man, seeing those winners, it makes me realize how much the game has changed.
You watched the highlights, right? Those apprentices weren't just banging on ducks with hammers.
Not even close. They were running diagnostics, balancing airflow with digital precision, and troubleshooting complex systems under a clock. It reminded me of my first apprentice job. My boss handed me a broom and told me if he saw me standing still, he'd find a heavier broom.
That's the old school way, but these competitions show that technical excellence is becoming a competitive sport. It's not just about labor anymore. It's about being a scholar of your craft.
Total agreement. And if you're listening and you're running a shop, stop browsing resumes for the perfect veteran who doesn't exist. You've got to build them. The winners of that PHCC contest didn't just wake up talented. They were in programs that aligned their training with the actual business needs. Reach out to your local tech schools. Don't just ask for graduates. Ask how you can help shape the curriculum.
It's a two-way street. You can't complain about a talent shortage if you're not willing to be the one who pours the knowledge into the bucket.
Plus, it keeps you on your toes. There is nothing more humbling than a 19-year-old apprentice pointing out that you're holding your multimeter upside down.
Has that happened recently?
I'm choosing to plead the fifth for the sake of my professional reputation.
Well, while you're protecting your shred of dignity, let's talk shop. Literally. For the maker moguls out there, those of you trying to turn a hobby into a side hustle or a full-time brand, the world is leaning hard into a very specific look right now.
The retro future aesthetic. I've seen this popping up. It's like someone took a 1974 Sears catalog and mixed it with a NASA laboratory.
It's brilliant, though. Shopify put out some data on how to spot trends, and one of the biggest takeaways for 2026 is the emotional bridge. People don't just want a product. They want something that feels like it has a history, even if it was made yesterday.
I get that. It's why people buy those brand new refrigerators that look like they're from the 50s. We want the reliability of the modern age, but the soul of the era when things were made of actual steel and wood.
Exactly. So, if you're selling handmade furniture or leather goods, your branding needs to reflect that. Think muted earth tones, mustard yellows, deep burnt oranges, forest greens. And the typography, bold, blocky fonts that look like they were typed on an old IBM Selectric.
It's funny because I used to think branding was just put my name on it so people know who to blame if it breaks. But you're right. There's a psychology to it. If I hand you a bowl wrapped in plain plastic, it's a bowl. If I hand it to you in a thick, recycled cardstock box with a hand-stamped, retro-looking logo and a story about the wood, suddenly it's an heirloom.
And that's where the niche comes in. Don't try to be the everything store. Find that specific pain point. Maybe it's a tool roll for people who work on vintage motorcycles, or a specific type of kitchen jig for gourmet sourdough bakers. Use social listening. Listen to what people are complaining about in forums, and then build the solution that looks like it's been around for 40 years.
You're making me want to go out and redesign my labels. I currently use a Sharpie and a piece of masking tape.
Yeah, Tiger's table do not sit probably isn't the prestige branding the market is looking for.
Fair point. But let's talk about the gear that actually makes the stuff. I have been scrolling through the DIY mastery section of the shop lately, and the Amazon workshop upgrades are getting wild. There are nearly 100 new woodworking gadgets that just dropped this season.
Some of them look like glorified toys, Tiger. Come on, a smart measuring tape?
Hey, don't knock the smart tape until you've tried to remember a 47 and 5/16 measurement while walking across a shop, only to forget the 5/16 part the second you pick up the pencil. Having that sync to an app on your phone, that's not a toy, that's a sanity saver.
Okay, I'll give you that one. But what about all these jigs? It feels like there's a jig for things that don't need jigs.
Now, there I might agree with you to a point, but look at these new track saw attachments for standard circular saws. For a guy who can't afford a $2,000 Festool setup, spending $80 on a precision guide that turns your old Makita into a laser straight cutting machine, that's a game changer for the weekend warrior.
And the safety tech. That's something I think we can both get behind.
Absolutely. Seeing sensors for table saws becoming more affordable for home shops is the best news in the world. I've got friends who are missing pieces of their working hands because they had one bad afternoon 20 years ago. If you can spend a few $100 to ensure your saw stops the second it senses skin, that is the best investment you will ever make in your shop. Period. Better than the fanciest lathe, better than the most expensive maple.
It's the peace of mind tax.
Exactly. It's about being able to walk back into the house at the end of the day with all 10 digits so you can actually enjoy the life you're building.
That got heavy for a second, but it's real. That's what we do here. We're talking about the high-end industrial stuff and the home shop safety because it's all connected. It's all about the craft.
It really is. Whether you're a master welder using a submerged arc system to build a skyscraper or a maker mogul trying to figure out how to make a 70s style logo for your custom candles, the heart is the same. You're taking an idea and dragging it into reality.
And sometimes reality drags you back a little bit.
Mostly on Mondays. But that's why we're here, to remind each other that the mistakes are just the grit that makes the polish look better.
So, what's the takeaway for today, Tiger? Before you go back to staring at that white oak for another 3 hours.
I think the lesson today is that precision isn't just about the tools. It's about the intention. Whether you're choosing a brand aesthetic or a welding technique, do it with purpose. Don't just drift into your crafts. Study the trends, invest in your safety, and never stop being an apprentice to the work. Because the second you think you've mastered it, the wood is going to find a way to prove you wrong.
Spoken like a man who's about to lose a staring contest with a piece of timber.
It's a draw at best, Alex. It's a draw at best.
Thanks for tuning in to the TigerDen Daily, everyone. Stay gritty, stay creative, and we'll see you in the shop tomorrow.
Keep making stuff. Even if it's just a mess. You can always sweep that up later.